Hello guys, and welcome to this B2 first certificate, that's FCE Writing Paper video course. In this lesson I'm going to teach you about the writing criteria that the examiners look for when they are marking your essays and your Part 2 writings. By understanding these criteria, you should know exactly what you need to be writing about to get the best possible marks in both Parts 1 and Part 2 of the exam. So let's get started. Okay, so let's look at the marking criteria. I told you what these were in the last lesson, but what we're going to do now is to have a look at them in a bit more detail. So, content. When you're thinking about your writing, you will be assessed on the content, so you need to make sure that you have answered every part of the question. There might be a couple of different ideas in the question, and you need to make sure that you answer both of those ideas or topics. You should also think about your target reader. Who are you writing for? If the question says describe or explain, you need to try to develop these points and inform the reader. And in a couple of minutes, we will look at who the target reader is for the essay. But before that, let's have a look at the second marking criteria, communicative achievement. The layout and tone is important. For an essay, you need to write in a formal way and not a personal way. You should hold the reader's attention with a simple structure and short sentences which are easy to follow. That's the best way to do this. A lot of my students write long and complicated sentences which just make it difficult to follow. So I advise writing simply short sentences which are easy to follow. Your planning at the beginning of your essay will really help when you're deciding how you're going to structure it and how the different paragraphs will link together. You should think about this in the 5 minutes before you start writing when you are planning your essay. Communicative purpose is involved in this marking criteria. So what you need to do is to look at the words in the question, and if it says make a complaint, you need to make it obvious to the reader, to the examiner, that is what you are doing. You are complaining. You can even use those same words, or even better, similar words with the same meaning, to show that you are making a complaint. And the examiner will also check that you mix simple and complex ideas together, as well as simple and complex language. So even though your sentences can be short, the language you use should be complex. If you can write sophisticated words, that's very good. Organization. You should use simple linking words and phrases. For example, and, but, because, first of all, finally. And I recommend that you write down some more of these linking words and phrases now, because they will be really useful for you in the exam. And here are some more complex linking words and phrases. Moreover, it may appear as a result. If you can use a combination of these simple and complex linking words, you will get better marks in the exam. Grammatical devices are also important for this part of the exam. And if you get a good course book, for example this one, which I recommend to all my students, the grammar that you need to show to the examiners for the exams you can find in this course book. And if you can use these different grammar areas, for example, reference pronouns, using words like she, they, it, them, etc. And if you can use grammatical devices, for example, substitution and ellipsis, you will also get better marks in the exam. So buy a course book, like this one, if you type this link into your web browser. Buy this course book, learn the grammar which is involved in this course book, and try to use it when you are doing the writing part of the exam. Which is a good thing to do in the exam if you can, showing a balance of ideas. The first point is very important, the second is debatable. And you're also using ellipsis here. By not repeating the word point, you are showing that you can say the same idea but with slightly different language. So the second is not the second point, but the second is debatable, showing ellipsis. Continuing with organization, make sure that your writing is logical, that it has a good path, and that it is ordered. So for example, you say the first point, then the second point, then the third point. So make sure it's logical, that it has a good idea for why you've structured it in this way, and it's obvious to follow the structure and the order. Here are some ideas. You should save the most important sentence for last in a paragraph. You should use parallelism, which means keeping the verb tenses in a sentence the same if possible. So if you use the present tense in the first part of the sentence, try to use the present tense in the second part of the sentence if possible. Marking criteria 4 is language. The vocabulary that you use should be both simple and complex. So you want to learn about collocations and phrasal verbs to use. And again, I recommend this course book. If you type this into your web browser, in this course book there are loads of useful phrasal verbs and collocations that you should learn before the exam. And then try to use them in the writing part. If you don't know what collocations are, I've made a YouTube video about this topic and I will put the link for that video in the description with this video. Also, if you want to learn about some phrasal verbs in a fun and interactive way, I've also made some videos about phrasal verbs where I'm walking around different cities around the world to try and show you how to use them in a real life context. And I will put the link for that video in the description of this video as well. Make sure the grammar you use is simple and complex as well. So for example, use relative clauses, modal verb forms, etc. And if you look at the contents of this course book, which I recommend to my students, again, it shows you the grammar that you should be using at this level for this exam. The examiners will also check that your errors don't impede communication, which means they can still understand your writing even if it has some errors in it, some mistakes. They can still understand the meaning. And finally, you should try to show a range which means a variety of different language in your writing. You should show accuracy, that you can use grammatical structures correctly, for example. You should be consistent in your writing. And you should avoid using the same words more than once. Try to use different words with the same or similar meanings if you can. Okay. Now, this is an assessment scale. So here we can see that the examiners base each of the 4 criteria on a scale of 0 to 5. 5 being good and 0 being bad. And if you want to read this in more detail now, you can go to this link, type that into your web browser, and you'll find this on page 34. But we will be looking at this in more detail in the next lesson. So thanks for watching this video, and in the next video lesson we're going to be focusing in a lot more detail on the part 1, the essay. So we'll look at what you need to be doing in part 1, what the examiners are looking for in more detail, the style of writing, etc. And we will also critique a sample part 1 answer. So I'll see you in the next video lesson, guys. Bye bye.